impact of climate change on mental health. Mr. Achemu has over a decade of global experiences from Africa, Asia, and America. He is a dynamic professional counselor and educator, cybersecurity analyst, and contemporary management expert. He has worked in the Middle East, so he knows a lot about cultural differences and how to be inclusive in his messaging. So if you all would give us a round of applause for Mr. Achemu, that would be great. My name is Hope Cupid, so I'm very honored to be here to witness this as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Hope.
What?
Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen. Can you hear me from the back here? How about from this end? The last person, good? All right. Thank you, Hope, too, for this great opportunity and for the introduction. All right. And it's my privilege to be here today to share from my little experience with you. And I hope you've been having a wonderful conference. If you've not been enjoying your conference, let me just see you. Okay. Meaning we'll all be enjoying the conference. Great, terrific. All right, this afternoon, we're going to explore the impact of climate change on our mental health. I understand there's a lot of literatures, a lot of news you've heard about climate change, right? How it impacts our environment as scientists, right? How it affects the economy, and then how it affects even our health. Psychiatrists have spoken a lot about this, and then environmental specialists have talked about this. But today, we're taking a different dimension, and that is its impact on our brain. I'm going to begin by reviewing with you some of our goals, our missions, and what we intend to achieve at the end of this presentation today. All right. First and foremost, understanding what climate change is, what global warming is, and also what mental health is. And then we'll see how we can make a link between climate change and mental health. How do these two relate? How dare you tell me that the environment is affecting the brain or causing me mental illnesses, right? Then we'll see what are the vulnerable populations that are usually the victims, those who suffer most, right, as a result of this climate change. We're going to explore also the psychological impacts, the social determinants of the health, and then mitigation strategies. And then, most importantly, advocacy. I'm here, like the introduction says, a doctoral student in counselor's education with concentration in advocacy. So I have also joined in the climate advocacy. And I hope today I'm going to achieve two things. But before we continue with that, I just want to sample the room to see what is happening, where we are with climate change. If I would ask, I was supposed to get a QR code, but to some extent, Slido wasn't working with my Canvas presentation. So let me just get a sample opinion here. How familiar are you with the impact of climate change? Those who are familiar with them, let me see your hands. Okay. Okay, more than half of the room, well, almost everybody, right? So I'll say we are very familiar with the impact of climate change, right? It will be okay if I make such assumptions, right? So meaning all I'm going to talk today will be a kind of refresher and a call to actions for each and every one of us. And then my next question is, have you personally or professionally encountered individuals with impact of climate change? If you have, let me see by a raise of hand. Wow, I'm shocked. More than half of the room, meaning climate change is real. Because either our families, our friends, our loved ones have been impacted by this great nomenclature. Okay, let's go to the last one. Which mental health condition do you think is most likely to increase due to climate change? Anxiety, depression, PTSD, substance abuse, and others. Let me see a random opinion from them. Yes.
I think anxiety and depression.
Anxiety and depression. Okay, somebody is giving thumbs up for anxiety and depression. Let me hear from you.
I think PTSD.
PTSD, yes. Right? Okay.
I think PTSD and substance abuse.
PTSD, substance abuse. Okay. So if I say, let's vote, let's do a voting for each of these. Anxiety and depression, let me see your hands. Wow. Okay. PTSD, let me see your hand. Okay. Substance abuse and PTSD. Okay, right. That's a beautiful suggestion. She said all. So I'm going with that. Do we say all of them are likely to increase in the coming days? Wow, everybody's saying yes to this. So it implies that you and I, every one of us here, that afford our slaves who have a lot to do, right? You must not be an advocate to do this, to advocate for your community with your government, but we'll get to all of that. And that is why my mission here today is simple, right? But before I begin, around 2017 or 2016, with the political issues going on in the States, there was a lot on the news. And I don't want to mention names, so I don't offend anybody. But it was stated on the news that climate change is a hoax. True or false? We all heard that in the news. As much as I don't intend to sound persuasive, right? So I stay neutral. I am here to tell you otherwise that climate change is what?
Real.
Did you hear me from the back? Climate change is what?
Real.
If we say climate change is real, right? It is also important to also establish that also mental health is real. If you disagree with me that mental health is not real, let me see your hand. Nobody. It then implies that mental health is what? It's real, right? Come to think of it, some of us have got the best insurance in the world. Some of us go to hospital probably weekly, bi-weekly, monthly to check what? Our health. Some of us go to see our nutritionist to do what? To check our diets, right? And the body works probably 16 hours in a day, if I'm not mistaken, or some work 12 hours in a day. At the end, you shut down and rest. But who will tell me the most part of our body that works almost 24 hours in a day? The brain. Have you thought of it? How much and how many times we've taken the time to check our brains? Do we take our brains serious? Because the brain works 24 hours, more than the 16 hours. But we check our health to go to our doctors weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. But we've never taken the time to check what? Our brains. So climate change is real, as much as I don't intend to sound persuasive, but I also want to establish to you that mental health is also real. And that is why my mission here today is to, and if you live in this room today, or at the end of this conference, with just these two things, I'll be the happiest man on earth. I'll go celebrate, and definitely I'll throw a party. That one, you have come here to become disciples and advocates of mental health. I mean, of climate change. Let's begin from there. That you have come here, and if these are the two things you leave this conference today, or you leave this classroom today, I'll be more than happy. So If you intend to join me in this fight, in advocating for climate change, I want to see with the raise of hand.
What?
Wow, terrific, wonderful people, I'm happy. Please, let me take this like my usual classroom. I want to say a round of applause for ourselves. Let's clap on my board. So, Enes is disciples and advocates of mental health. We've all talked about how mental health is important, is real. If mental health is important, then we must also join in the bandwagon. And that is why I'm not here today as an alarmist to raise the alarm that, oh, mental health is there, but to also encourage you to be advocates, right? To be disciples of mental health. So let's continue quickly by looking at some data, right, as a way of our introductions. And also, let me plead, or pardon, beg that some content, some pictures, some videos might be graphic. For those who have had loved ones, relatives affected by mental health, it could be traumatic. If you feel any photo, any video is about to cause you anxiety or anything, please be my guest by just stepping out a little bit. And after we're done with that picture or photo, you can come in. But as much as possible, I intend to make it mild, but just a disclaimer. So there was a study conducted in 2021. It showed that at least 85% of the world population have been affected by human-induced climate change. Meaning we are correct when we say that climate change is real. We have experienced 85% of the world population. Isn't that too much? Isn't that a lot? According to a research also considered, research conducted in 2012 by the National Wildlife Federation, it said about 50 million elderly people and 46 American low-income people had to suffer from physical or psychological stress as a result of climate change. I hope I'm not sending cold fever into you by just giving you this data, right? And then estimated 60 million Americans with pre-existing psychological disorders are likely to be affected by climate change. And that is a lot. Meaning, as the days goes by, as climate change increases, the number is likely to rise from that. According to another studies conducted by Walls, who is in the American Pediatrics Association, Dr. Joshua Walls, he says that for every 1 degree Celsius increase in the weather, which is about 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit, the rate of crime is likely to increase by 4 to 6% and about 0.7 to 2% increase in suicide and many more hospitalization. Because as the weather becomes hotter and becomes warm, people can enjoy it. And the crime rate increases, violence increases, and also suicide rate. And our hospitals is just going to be filled with this. In another literature, it says that unfortunately, the American mental health system is not even prepared for this disaster that is to come. So having established that, right, I want us to see, if we have the time, about a minute or 2 minute video of victims of the Hurricane Katrina in 2005 and the wildfire in California to see how they were impacted by climate change. Let me see if that will play.
The thing about climate change is like reading about the apocalypse to think that like this is what we're leaving our kids as it gets rapidly worse and worse and worse feels like such a horrifying failure.
I wanted to feel how I felt before Katrina, but I never got that feeling. I never was anywhere that I felt as comfortable as I was before the storm.
It's interesting to think about the ways in which climate change can affect mental health. I think a lot of people are not really aware that this is a problem.
I grew up in Southern California, in a part of Southern California called San Benito. It's the Inland Empire and it's very fire prone. I was about 6 months old during the Panorama fire. And our whole neighborhood burned, my house somehow didn't burn. And so that was sort of my first into fire, if you will.
I was 13 when Katrina happened. The Saturday before the storm actually hit, I had to go to choir practice at church. And my dad was boarding up the house. We had to put boards on the windows. And then after we left, I was just like, no, when we go home, start packing your stuff because we're leaving. So that's what we did.
Last year, we're in the middle of the pandemic and I wake up one morning and I looked outside and the sky seemed orange. We were driving along the highway and you couldn't see the ocean. It just looked like the world ended. I sort of can't explain how apocalyptic it was, right? Like it was like being in some sort of apocalypse movie. I started having a panic attack and I realized that I couldn't drive the car safely. I was not breathing. So we pulled off, we ended up in a Whole Foods parking lot. My husband drove in, got us out of the car and loaded us all in and we picked up the car the next day.
We can all recognize that if you experience a natural disaster, it's a very stressful event. It's frightening, it disrupts your life, it disrupts your community.
I was about maybe 15 or 16 when I realized that Katrina had an impact on my well-being as far as just being in totally new environments. I realized once I decided to go to Texas for college, I just had to move around a lot. So I find a psychiatrist, I go to see him, I talk to him, and he was just like, oh, you definitely have some PTSD. You're searching for some type of stability.
Post-traumatic stress disorder can be quite common because it is traumatic to live through one of these events. And so people might have recurrent memories of what they went through during the disaster.
Okay, let's talk about that, right? We're saying what their testimony is, how they've been affected. And if you listen to the first speaker, how she describes that as close apocalypse. It seemed to her like the end of the world. And if we have watched the video further, you would have seen how she was driving and then seeing everywhere change that triggers anxiety in her, right? As a result of her past experience from the fire. And we've heard also the testimony of the hurricane victim, how each time she sees rain and flood, how it triggers anxiety and fear. It then implies that climate change is real. But because we're students here, because I was made to understand that we have students in our gathering. If you're a student, let me see you by raise of hand. Shout out to all the students, right? So let's ask ourselves, what is climate change, right? The definition we have here is according to the UN, right? That is the shift or a long-term shift in temperature or weather pattern. In the past, we've been having a lot of snows, but lately we seldom have snows, right? The Arctics are wearing off. These are shifting pattern, right? In the past, it gets very cold, but our weathers get warm and we no longer wear those big and long coat jackets. This is the shift in weather pattern. An increased concentration in greenhouses, such as carbon dioxide, stripe heat in temperature, are some of the characteristics or factors that have led to this shift in this climate, in this weather pattern. And what is global warming? Interchangeable. Global warming is where the Earth's average temperature keeps rising, causing significant environmental disruptions. And what are those extreme weather events that frequently severe that affects our weather, our climate? Let's begin with the first one. Wildfire. We've seen wildfires in California especially. And for those of us who are into agro and into forestry and all of this, climate experts say that this has led to a lot of deforestation. Our forests have been burnt down. They're no longer inhabitant for the ecosystem. They're no longer habitant for the animals, right? So wildfire is one of those contributing to our problems, right? Another one is flood. I want to show you a short video of the Hurricane Helena recently in South Carolina, and you see what victims of this are going through. This is their sitting room, flooded even to chest level. And see, this is just the recent one, just close to us in South Carolina. This is somebody's sitting room. I hope they're safe or they survive these situations. And if they survive these situations, what then do you think will be their experience going further? Definitely there will be implications. Besides besides flooding, we've had hurricane, right? Which is another one. See how devastating hurricane is. Moving debris from parts of the streets to the other. Definitely, this is going to destroy homes, properties, and people. So what do you expect victims of this at the end of this kind of horrific experience? Before I go further, let me share the experience with you. My first time traveling out of Africa to Asia, I was precisely in the Philippines when I was doing my master's between 2010 and 2012. And I was told there was going to be typhoon. I never had orientation what a typhoon looks like. And there was no orientation from the school, which I took it up against the school later on. And at 2 a.m., said it was going to be heavy typhoon. With a flood. 2 a.m. I was just in the room and I started hearing all the different sounds and earth movement. Though I was on the second floor, so they said it was going to be flooded. I was like, okay, let me open the door and go see the water level at this point. If the water level was coming up, right? So that I'll know if I was going to run to the third level and probably from the third level to the rooftop. But because I never had orientation, right? As soon as I opened the door, right? The wind slammed the door on my forehead and on my face. And what happened? I landed on the floor. It took me more than 5 minutes to get myself and then to get up. But I had severe headache for more than a year or two as a result of that incident. And after that, each time I hear hurricane, typhoon, flood, landslide, you can imagine what the experience will be, the shock, the trauma that goes on in me. These things are real. Before then, on the opposite side is drought, when there's absence of rain. I've been in the Middle East. There was a year precisely in Dubai, it didn't rain for 2 years. When we saw rain, it was celebration. Farmers were having their crops dying, their animals dying as a result of drought, lack of rainfall. And what is contributing? Climate change, global warming. Then rising sea levels within cities, ex-states. being washed away as a result of rising sea levels. For those who live in close to beach areas, I need not tell you what their experience are. So these are some of the things that climate change exacerbates or cause to our environment. But before we proceed, let's talk about mental health. What do we mean when we talk about mental health? Oh, thank you very much. Right. You are like, oh, I didn't do that. So, you figure it out, right? Okay. So mental health is the absence of, it's not just the absence of disease, right? Or the state in which organism can fulfill its activities, or a state of equilibrium in our health, right? The ability to form and maintain affectionate relationship with one another. Imagine when you are in your family, you can't relate well with your siblings. You can't relate well with your brothers and sisters because something is going on, mental health or mental illnesses. When you can no longer accommodate people, you can no longer interact with people effectively. That is mental health. Mental health gives individual a sense of worth, control, and comprehension of their internal and external functions. The moment your mental health is intact, you will be able to control your relationship with your friends, your neighbor, your colleagues at work, your family member, your spouse. But once your mental health is not okay, I bet you, it definitely affects your relationship. I have a housemate some years back, very nice and a sweet guy. But the moment mental illness sets in, he became a nightmare. So in order for us to have a wonderful relationship in this wonderful world, then our mental health needs to be in check. Having established what climate change is, what global warming is, what mental health is, how are we connected to the universe? How are we connected to our environment? How are we connected to Mother Earth? And I'll begin by putting the encyclical of Pope Francis titled Laudate Si. Encyclicals are usually letters written by the Holy Father from the Holy See to the people on social or environmental issues or whatever affects human beings. And in one of the Pope Francis encyclical, he referred to the earth as our sister, and in another expression or another breath, he refers to it as Mother Earth. Let's look at the analogy of a mother. It says, a mother opens her arms to embrace us when we leave or we travel or we return back home. A mother is caring, is loving. The mother provides all the needs. A sister with whom we share our lives. I've got 4 beautiful sisters, and there's never a dull moment anytime I'm with them, right? I think we need to get this slide back so people don't start sleeping. This. I did the magic. Okay, so a sister is when we share our lives, we share the beautiful memories, we share everything. And he describes the earth as Mother Earth that sustains and governs us. It produces various fruits, including flowers and herbs. Some of us went out this morning to see some beautiful plants, right? See how beautiful, colorful scenery the earth could be without global warming. So that is the description the Pope has used to describe Mother. He also refers to the earth as our common home. If the earth, our environment, has become our common home, it then implies, right, that the damage to the earth is a damage to us. It then implies a damage to our environment is a damage to us. And that is why it says that a connection between us and our environment cannot be separated. It's inexplicable, it's inexplicable. There is that connection between us because the earth is our mother, the earth is our sister, the earth is our home. I know the men are angry that I'm not saying that the earth is our brother. But also by extension, say also the earth is our brother. We share a joyful memories with. Given the depth of our connections, a damage to this environment is a damage to us too. Am I communicating? Hello? Hello? If I'm communicating, I want to say thumbs up to make me feel happy. Yes, because I want to feel happy with my mental health, right? As a result of this connection with Mother Earth, with Sister Earth, by implication, Brother Earth, then we begin to talk of some of these issues as a result of what happens to the Mother Earth, to Sister Earth. First and foremost, we've heard of concepts like eco-grief, eco-anxiety, eco-paralysis, eco-nostalgia, eco-guilt, depression, and psychotropic. Who has an idea of what an eco-grief is? Yes.
It's grieving for the earth as it is, as it was.
Beautiful. A grief, a pain as a result of what is happening to our environment. Any other view? Any other view? Yes. Eco-grief. Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Oh, you want us to move further? Okay, eco-anxiety. Yes, let's hear from you, eco-anxiety.
It's a fear of the future, as we're going now.
As we're going out, according to a research, 84% of our youth are experiencing eco-grief, eco-anxiety, because they are afraid, they don't know what the future holds for them. Is there going to be a time that they won't be able to own beautiful homes or to enjoy those family and environment handed over to them by their forefathers? Or what is the job market looking for them? What is the earth going to be when it becomes warmer and burning? Are they able to survive with the high crime rates as a result of climate change or global warming? So there's a lot of anxiety among our youth and even children. So if you're a young mother, then you should be concerned about this. If you're a student, you should be worried. Eco-paralysis, any other opinion? Yes, please.
Feeling of being stuck or frozen, maybe by like the magnitude of how global warming and climate change is and how much harm it can cause.
Excellent. Being stuck in that grave as a result of the damage. Imagine the victims of Hurricane Helena or Milton, right? What will happen to them? Eco-nostalgia. Yes, please.
It's like a longing for an environment that no longer is.
Yes.
And I immediately thought of Furiosa from the Mad Max franchise. But yeah.
All right, let's move faster. Eco-guilt. Yes, please. When we have failed to do enough for our environment, our Mother Earth, our Sister Earth, the guilt of not doing enough. Depression, we all know, right? And lastly, psychotropic. Yes, any idea? Yes.
I looked it up. It's a state of, it's emotions that people feel in relationship to the earth.
The feeling in relation to the earth. There are people who are paranoid as a result of things happening on the earth or that happen to the earth. There are people who are angry because of Hurricane Milton or what has happened with Helena or Katrina. Okay? And this holds us tight and continue to do harm to us. So all of these nomenclatures happens as a result of what? Climate change. what has happened to our environment. Let's move faster. And that is why NASA declared and says that climate change affects not just our environment, but it also affects our natural resources, economy, and other aspects of human life. There's no misgiving about that. It's period. Punto, like the Italians would say, right? Or the Filipinos would say, okay, the Arabic will say kalas, finish, case closed, causa finito, right? And these issues may include depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, suicide, outbreak of violence. How does climate change affect our mental health? A study conducted in Australia in 2015 said heat waves are linked to increase in mental health issues, including mood disorder, anxiety disorder, dementia, psychological exhaustion, schizophrenia, bipolar, to mention but a few, right? Another study also conducted conducted in 2018 said the economic impact of drought lead to increase in suicide, especially among farmers. We've heard a lot of farmers have committed suicide because of drought, right? An author of the 2018 study on the Journal of Natural Science predicts warmer temperature could lead as many as 40,000 additional suicides. Then, in another study conducted at the University of California, right, revealed that the survivors of the 2018 campfire, right, experienced PTSD that is comparable to the war veterans. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Public Economy found that violent crime in Los Angeles increased 5.7% when temperatures rose above 85%. That's comparable to the study of Dr. Josh Walls when he says that when the temperature goes higher by 1 degree Celsius, which is about 1.8 Fahrenheit, right, the crime rate increased between 4 to 6%. And he says 0.7 to 2.1 suicide rate and a lot of hospitalization. And we have seen, according to the American Psychological Association, that about 56% of US adults says climate change is the most important issue facing the world today. And adults between the age of 18 and 34 says they feel stress over climate change in their daily lives. It then implies climate change is real. It's not a hoax, as much as I don't intend to sound persuasive. And this is also outside of the US, a study conducted in Cambridge University. And one of the experts says that extreme events don't themselves cause gender-based violence, but rather they exacerbate the drivers of those violence. If you live with a partner who is affected by climate change, what do you expect? The reaction, you become the victim. And that is what is leading to gender-based violence. Not because climate change is coming to cause those harm of themselves, right? So if we have established then that climate change, right, exacerbate or increase crime, right, then what next is left for us? To walk to action fast. Direct effect of climate change on mental health. 1, trauma, shock from natural disasters like hurricane, flood, and wildfire, anxiety, which we all voted for all, and then depression. Let's see the indirect impacts of climate change. Loss of homes, displacement, economic hardship, leading to chronic stress and anxiety. Impact on social determinants of health, like employment. If climate change affects your environment and the company has to close down and move to another place, a more safer, for example, what happens to the inhabitants of that area? They lose their job. And when people lose their job, what happens? Depression, anxiety sets in, right? Housing and food insecurity. When there's a drought, no rainfall, or flood wash away a particular area, then there's no home for people. People become displaced. homeless, and what causes depression, anxiety first? Homelessness, absence of job. If you live here now today as you're stepping out, God forbid, right? As soon as you step down, you've been told you lose your job. Definitely for the next 1 week, you're going to be worried. So climate change has led to food insecurity, long-term impact, displacement, economic impact, migration, and conflict. Let's look at migration, for example. How people have been forced to leave their ancestral home, their original place of existence with their family, where they love, where they grew up, to a new environment as a result of what? Flood, hurricane, wildfire. And that is the reality with us. Economic impact. Let's look at the vulnerable populations. Children, meaning each and every one of us here is affected. If you don't have children, you have older parents or elderly relatives, those with pre-existing conditions or pre-existing mental health conditions. These are victims. So it is time to stop politicizing mental health, climate change, because we have children who are becoming victims, young adults who are afraid of what the future holds for them. Farmers and agricultural workers, because their livelihood is affected. Indigenous communities, low-income communities, like the Black people have been synonymous with this low-income environment. Those who live in ghettos, the moment flood happens, what happens? They have no home. And they don't have enough income to prepare a long time and then to wage a war. We could say, oh, it doesn't concern me, it doesn't affect me. But imagine when they are displaced, what happens? Crime. And when crime rises, we become indirect victims of climate change. Displacement of indigenous Alaska people, communities due to rising sea levels. We also have the Canadian Aboriginals being displaced today as a result of climate change. Any other groups that we think are victims of vulnerable populations? Any idea of any community or victim? Yes, please.
Maybe those that are incarcerated.
Incarcerated. Those in our correctional facilities, right, are victims. Any other group or populations? Yes. The handicapped are disabled community or disabled community, right? Are also victims of climate change. Imagine I saw a video of one of the floods and the victim who was disabled couldn't go while everybody was running for their lives. Imagine not being able to run to the rooftop. I was much younger back there in the Philippines and I was ready to run to the rooftop, right? So imagine if there was a disabled person there, what would happen? Like any other population? Any?
I
Yes.
know in Panama, they're moving a bunch of folks, from the lower end of the country because of rising sea level.
Yes. Those in the lower level of the earth. Louisiana is somehow very low from literatures available to us. All right, let's move fast. So coping mechanism, building communities, mental health interventions, government and policies. How many of us are government officials here? Please, let me see. You work in government, let me see. Government doesn't work in government. How are we able to do as government officials? How are we able to contribute? The policymakers, the lobbyists, those who lobby. How are we able to lobby policies that favors climate change? Right? Call to action. If we've all agreed that climate change is real and it affects our mental health. The first one, the moment I saw it, I was startled. Then how do they want me to move from a long distance? But experts have said, if you have no really reason or very important cogent reasons why you should be moving from point A to another, please reduce, because those airplanes emit gases to the air. They contribute, and this is where the US has been held in many UN summits. UN and the first world countries have been held ransom because you contribute. You've had more industries, more planes that are contributing these gases into the air. Cut your waste, right? Insulate your home. Clothes, durable clothes that last. Not every one of them, like a friend of mine, because he can't do laundry. When he wears today, he goes to Walmart and somewhere else to buy the cheaper one that he will wear tomorrow, right? Walk and cycle more, right? As much as possible, where it's necessary, if we can cycle or we can walk. Seasonal and local activities. Dial it down, talk to friends, especially those who are victims and those we know that can do much. Electric cars are becoming very important in our time, right? Switching your energy, right? Green your money. Do you understand the concept of green your money? Okay, who understand the concept of green your money? Yes, please.
Is it like being careful where you invest?
Being careful where you invest, but there's more to that. Good. Any more idea? Peter? Oh, okay, Henry.
Usually like with the bank that you choose to work with and like what projects the bank funds as well.
Close to that also, that's part of it. Yes.
Instead of using cash, use like online currency.
Excellent, that's part of it too, right? Okay, let me give them for the last one. Any idea? More? Investing in projects that are eco-friendly. Right? Non-profits who recycle, instead of doing charities to extravagant celebrations and lifestyle, investing in your money in things that are meaningfully, that impacts a lot, right? Talk to your politicians, repair and use your old item, and then very importantly, a lot of us are going solar. Ensure you go solar as much as possible. If you can move to electric car, please do. If you cannot move to electric car, at least try to be in the middle like me, hybrid, right? And then, before we go, I want to leave us with a quote. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. Our actions and decisions today will shape the way we'll be living in the future. Can you see why our youths are grieved and having anxiety of what the future is? What future, what world, what society are we living for our younger ones and for our children? Action plan and commitment. Before I leave this room, I want to set up an action plan or committees. I'm not going to come back to you, or there won't be an opportunity to know what you're doing. But I want us, we've all accepted we're living here to be disciples, right? Advocates of climate change and my mental health. Let me begin with those who work in the government. Let me ask, what do you think you can do to help remedy our society, our world, our mother earth, our sister earth for us? Those in the government, let me hear. Yes, please.
I work with the county government and we are working on developing, we have an internal climate energy action plan for the internal operations of our county, but then we are in the development of a community-wide, so this external version of the climate energy action plan that works with the community to gain their perspective and experience due to climate change and develop recommendations to provide ways to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and reduce their kind of contributions towards climate. Try to say that.
Excellent. This is on the government and on the council. How about you? How do you intend to contribute to make impact with regards to this?
On our side?
On you as a person. Tiara, right?
Yeah, I'm Tiara. Hi.
Tiara. Okay, thank you, Tiara. Okay.
Specifically from the county side, we converting our police vehicles to electric vehicles. We are upgrading our buildings to do more energy efficient HVAC. We are insulating our buildings to be more efficient in general for the county buildings, public libraries, working with our school systems. So on the internal side, the government is trying to reduce their. Oh, yes, we've approved it for county sector.
All right, thank you. Any other question from the government? Government, those with the
Some over
government.
here, there's some government over there. Gabriel?
Yes, yes,
So one area, and like Sierra, I worked in clean energy, so there's a lot of efforts amongst the federal government to do the very same things that she's described. And it's because it came out of the administration that these things need to be changed. But one other area is reducing the use of single-use plastics.
okay,
Because they do contribute the process of developing them, extraction of fossil fuels, actually contributes quite a bit into pollution as well as greenhouse gas emissions. So there is a campaign to reduce single-use plastics across the government. And we do work specifically on those issues and developing frameworks for how that can be done.
thank you very much. And you are committing to join in this. Thank you very much. Any other person from the government? Yes, please.
Yes, I'm with, my name is Alana Crowley, I'm with the Maryland Forest Service. And, we have, several things going on. The biggest right now is, we're in the middle of a 10-year, push, 5 million trees for Maryland.
Okay,
So the goal is to plant 5 million trees in a decade. And I believe it's like 10% of those need to be in traditionally underserved areas.
oh, that's
So-
good.
There's been studies showing linkage of less asthma, better air quality, better water quality with the implementation of trees in urban areas. And on my side, I am specifically a watershed forester. So by afforesting the buffers, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with buffer plantings. So we are improving water quality through buffer plantings.
That sounds good. Thank you very much. And you're committing to that.
100%.
I will share with you that I was also part of those who were into tree planting on the Bowie State University, right? Last time we were out, right? Students? Okay, you're from Bowie. Oh, shout out to Bowie, right? Today is supposed to be what in Bowie? Homecoming, and we're sacrificing, we're here. Thumbs up, right? Okay, for those who directors and managers in their different firms and organizations, how do you intend to lead in this campaign? I want to hear from you. Government officials, directors, managers, project managers. Yes, please, speak up. Let's hear.
In our buildings, we changed all of our water faucets to where you can bring your water bottles. To stop using bottled water, single source.
Yeah.
So that way we encourage everyone and we buy them, water bottles to use that instead of buying the plastic.
The plastic, all right. Yes, please.
I think a flexible work location,
Okay.
remote work, so people
Remote
don't
work.
have to commute.
All right, that sounds, yes, because of the energy that is being born commuting to work every day. Yes.
I work at the Alice Ferguson Foundation, and we bring about 6,000 students outdoor for outdoor education.
Okay.
And one of our programs is that they all have to participate in a trash-free lunch, and we talk a lot about their lunch waste that they have and making sure that we're composting and recycling the right items.
Yes. The last.
We, my organization, Trash Free Maryland, we work with legislatures and the Maryland state government to pass policy on litter and trash. So if you were like plastic bag bans, we work with that locally. And then stuff to reduce trash like extended producer responsibility for packaging, which is switching packaging waste responsibility from consumers actually produce. So we work really in depth in trying to have change for trash and litter and reducing our waste.
All right, that sounds good. Excellent. Just before we move to the next phase, this sounds beautiful ideas, but I want to hear something on individual level. Commitment we're making leaving this place today as something I hope to go do as an individual. As an individual, something I intend to do on my own, in my place of work, in my place of assignment, or how I intend to advocate for climate change. Mental health, yes. Yes.
I was in the Department of Energy and Environment. And I think, the purpose for me going into my work is offering a piece of perspective. I grew up in the city that I work in most of all my life. And I think that, it's important to go into these spaces and kind of like tell people you're related to, how climate change has impacted your childhood, specifically in those places that we're working. Because oftentimes, I don't think that you really see, well, I don't really personally see people who come from like the same background as me, like coming from like public school and like raised in Northeast DC. And I think offering that piece of perspective to my coworkers as they go into the field about how to interact with the public and where people are coming from is very important. I think that sometimes people can be like certain communities, like they don't care. And oftentimes I try to express that like everyone in DC wakes up with the same goal, but they're not all doing the same way. And it's important to use that lens when you're in the field and when you're doing your work.
Thank you, sweetheart. You just made my day. On that individual level, how are we connected to our environment? How do we give back because we privilege to be among the enlightened ones in our society? That is very important. And just as we talked about this thing, and we talked about plastics and all of them later, I think let's all go look at our state capital. The DC is getting right now, plastics and bottles, cans everywhere. It's an eyesore. The other time I had people who were coming to my school from England. I picked 2 of them up from the airport for a program. And we were driving. One of them, I came from Scotland also, and it was like, is this the capital of the nation? Later with plastics and everything like that. I felt embarrassed because I was like, this is America. Welcome to America. When I picked them up from the airport. To the nation's capital and this kind of expressions coming, that was heartbreaking for me.
Yeah, that's our reality.
That's our reality. So for those of us who work in the government, you have a way of passing this message to the mayor. Our capital needs to be cleaner than this. Yes.
I'll say personally, just last weekend I did 2 tree plantings, community tree plantings, so continue to participate in volunteer opportunities like that. I'm also a director for community engagement for a nonprofit in Baltimore City. And through that organization, I started yoga in the park sessions in communities that would be considered like disadvantaged or experiencing food apartheid and high crime areas, things like that. I do yoga in the park, so activating different brain spaces across the community to bring awareness to mental health and just having the opportunity for people to come together and talk about mental health. Because there is a direct correlation between access to green spaces and improved mental and physical health.
Thank you very much. Any other option before we go? Last person, yes.
I think more so like on the mental health side of things, I've been trying to personally like teach myself to be more open-minded with others in terms of like their interests or their engaging with them, because I feel like nowadays, especially like within my generation, we're very judgmental and we can be very mean to each other and very just like individualistic to the point of just brushing off anything that doesn't fit into like our, like how we are as people. So just for the people around me, I want to be more open-minded so that I can listen to them and hear them, and so that they can feel seen just as much as I want to be seen like that.
Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, that's just the reality. These are generations. We're too judgmental. We're not willing. There's a need to reorient ourselves about all that is happening. Our ability to tolerate and endure people, because people go through a lot, and a lot is happening in our environment. People move with mental health issues, mental illness, challenges here and there. Let's be open to accommodate. Let's be more empathetic, passionate, compassionate to people. Lastly, right, question and answer, because I've been told time is up. And then we have help resources. If you feel you're going through any mental health situation, you know anybody, please recommend them to the physicians, their primary health providers, right? There's a Climate Psychology Alliance, Suicide Crisis Helpline, UN Climate Actions, and the rest. A lot of material, tons and tons of materials are available on the internet. There are numbers to call 9888 in case of suicide crisis and the rest, right? Questions and answers. Just want to come. Any question from us?
I was gonna say, not necessarily a question, but I like that you talked about climate change exacerbating crime. So like if there's a hurricane and you have to stay at home with your abusive husband or wife, and then, you know, that causing more violence and an increase in violence. And I think also cities being prepared for the kind of somewhat positive effect of climate change, which is increased heat, which means more people outside, more festivals, more events, which more people in crowded spaces could be more conflict. So how are cities preparing for like conflict resolution and mitigation, having cooler spaces because people will be outside and engaging and partying more, so.
Thank you for that, Dandu. Please, conversation, crisis management, conflict resolutions, right, are way forward. Any other question or quick comment before we go, because I'm eating into the time? Any other question,
I
comment?
do want to
Yes.
add one thing.
Okay,
Climate change, it's really amazing the things that climate change impact. It's a national security issue as well.
yes,
Which is so, you know, you don't think about the migration of people being a security issue, you know?
Yes.
So I just wanted to put that bug out there that it's a serious thing,
it's a
right?
national security issue, and I've seen an article on that,
Yeah.
on how it impacts the US national security issue. Well, as a classroom teacher, right, this is my reference. But before we go, I want to say a very big thank you. And I want to see a round of applause for ourselves as we go out to the country of climate change. Thank you very much.
Guys, please turn in your forms. And you will get